we have doubts, it shows that we are wiser. But although I have a lot of doubts, I don't think I'm very wise, and I'm certainly not any wiser regarding the Thai political situation at the moment. I was assigned by Dr. Herman to speak about the turmoil of Thai politics in 2014. And that reminded me of a paper I wrote back in 2006, which was entitled Political Turmoil in Thailand, Thaksin, Protest, Elections and the King. As in 2006, actually, we are now again confronted with protests against the so-called Thaksin regime, with a move from constitutional forms of protest to mob rule, what Ajahn Tanil just referred to, with the consequences of an election boycott by the same political party as in 2006, the Democrat Party, and with a fundamental denial by the protesters of the political rights of the great majority of voters for the reason that they were supposedly uneducated, uninformed, open to bribery, stupid as water buffaloes, and morally deficient. As for the role of the king, it was very direct in 2006 because he had asked the courts to solve the problems. Well, it serves as a motivational force in the present-day protests. Finally, what has been called judicialization of Thai politics had just begun in 2006. Well, it is now in full bloom, and Ajahn Tanil referred to the Constitutional Court verdict this afternoon, but we have many other instances like the rejection of appeals for the application of Article 68, in particular the rejection of the court of the parliamentary amendment to the Constitution regarding elected senators. I will talk about two of the many challenges. One might see in the title of the seminar. Both have to do with the need from my very personal perspective as an outsider to further democratize elements of the Thai political order. First, I think Thailand needs to democratize the Democrat-dominated south of Thailand. This topic has arisen because I have been residing in Nakhon Si Thammarat for a little over 2 years. So my Bangkok-based perspective has changed quite a bit. My second suggestion will be to democratize the idea of both nation and monarchy, which obviously is a somewhat sensitive issue. But let me begin with the Democrat Party's dominance in the 9 connected provinces in the south, as shown in the following slide. What you can see here is there's no pointer. Oh, okay. What you can see is there's a big advantage for the Democrats in the 2001, 2005, 2007, and 2011 elections as far as the MPs in the South is concerned. Now, of course, there is nothing inherently wrong with the political party dominating a certain region. After all, the results in the north and the northeast are also very lopsided against the Democrat Party. If voters in a number of provinces have certain electoral preferences, the other parties simply need to work harder to make their policy proposals have a greater appeal to the voters. Although I don't want to stick too much to this relationship between policies and voters, because in Thailand, as we know, local political structures have a very great impact on how voters will vote in elections, not only policies. But policies have become a lot more important in Thai policies since at least 2001. This kind of view about policies and about voter preferences in the South was the view I held when I lived in Bangkok before the PDRC protests. However, living in Nakhon Si Thammarat, as I said, during the protests, and looking at the ability of the Democrat Party-based PDRC in making the 2014 elections basically impossible, pointed to some very much more fundamental issue regarding the Democrat-dominated South. You can see here, you can see here that the elections basically proceeded relatively smoothly in the rest of Thailand. There were some disruptions in Bangkok, but in these provinces in the south, all dominated by the Democratic Party, elections were made basically impossible. This south, by the way, just to be complete, does not include the Muslim or the Malay Muslim south, which is much more similar to the rest of the country. Observers actually could have already wondered in 2001 and following years about Thaksin's famous populist policies in regard to the fact that they had almost no effect whatsoever on voting behavior in the South. While observers explain Thaksin's persistent electoral success in the North and the Northeast with reference to the appeal that his policies had on the voters in the South were exposed to exactly the same policies as everyone else in the country. But this didn't make the voters in the South increase their voters for the Thaksin government at all. So there must have been something different at work in the South than just only policy preference. And I think the reason that the reason is that the Democratic Party in the South has, over the past few decades, established a degree of ideological hegemony as different from simple voter preferences that puts the political behavior of the people there at the party's almost absolute disposal, even when the party does not merely ask for their votes in elections, but moves to mobilize people in order fundamentally to undermine the country's constitutional democratic order. And in this process, strips disagreeing citizens of their basic fundamental political rights and freedoms. The great majority of people in the Southern Democrat PDRC camp, I would argue, did not see themselves as being disenfranchised by the bloc elections. Even more important, these people did not perceive that they violated basic elements of any democratic political culture, such as pluralism of political opinions, tolerance of deviating views, and respect for the rights of others within one common constitutional order. Rather, they were willing co-conspirators against this very constitutional order. The great majority of people in the South seem to have determined that their actually particular political point of view was in fact the absolute truth, and not merely one set of opinions amongst others that also had to be respected. So what happened was that in the South it was very easy for the PDRC and the Democratic Party camp to close down government offices. Upper side is the provincial hall in Nakhon Manhat. Lower side is the district office in Tasala, where I live and where my university is located. Then local government units also were closed, such as on the left side, the Gambon Administrative Organization of Tasala, and then the municipal office in Tasala. The sign says, office closed until the enough will have resigned. So, as a result, people who disagreed with the PDRC and its supporters were left in a climate of fear, or perhaps more in a climate of helpless resignation. 1 week before the election, my usual newspaper vendor wondered whether she should go to the polls on election day or not. And 1 day before the election, in utter political frustration, she said, when I asked her, there will be no polling station. So indeed, her polling station was empty. At the left-hand side of the slideshow, there was absolutely nobody. There were no polling station officials and neither any equipment. The PDRC and the Democrat complex had closed everything completely down. Again, I would argue that this does not happen against the will of most officials. Most people, I think, were willing tools in the PDRC scheme, and this included many members of the Provincial Election Commission. I don't discount the possibility of intimidation and threats. They were certainly there. But I think that the basic issue is that the great majority of people were in the camp of the PDRC and the Democrats and thus willing to follow their lead, while those, the small number of people who were not in their camp couldn't do anything much, and if they voiced their opinion at all, then they would have been reprimanded by those who organized the protest. In Bangkok, as the famous picture on the right-hand side shows, some voters had to endure violent harassment when they tried to reach blocked polling stations. But at least there were still polling stations, and most would work. But in the south, you didn't even have polling stations. So from the perspective of the PDRC, the polling station officials who didn't turn up to work, and the guard in the picture, the voters were just stupid water buffaloes who had no right to vote in elections. And the following slide shows this quite clearly. Here you have the blood and then the water buffaloes salivating for her policies, and the text above, my glasses don't allow me to see that clearly. It says something like, you can be as stupid as you wish, but the buffaloes will still love you. And on the right-hand side, you have two famous ideologues of the PDRC. It says, one man, one vote cannot yet be applied in Thailand. And actually, this point of view is quite widespread in middle-class circles. The manager of my apartment building, a Chinese elite member, my urologist, they all said, Michael, do you really think that one man, one vote works in Thailand? And of course, their answer was, no, because there are too many water buffaloes in Thailand. If they were only somewhat higher, like cats or dogs, maybe they would be better off. It is important to note in this context that this is one thing that perhaps I deviate slightly from Ajahn Tane, because there is something more to this than just middle class and rural voters. It is important to note in this context that, and I only know this because I was in this house at the time. It is important to note in this context that the protesters in the Democrat-dominated South are not just like Bangkok-based middle-class people. Rather, their socio-economic composition is hardly any different from the red shirt groups and from Thaksin voters in the north and the northeast. Yet their political outlooks are polar opposites. Therefore, the simple distinction between Bangkok and upcountry middle class, meaning yellow shirts, Democrat PDRC, versus upcountry farmers, lower classes, and the poor, meaning red shirts and Thaksin voters, cannot be sustained that easily. Politically, the red shirts want respect for their opinions and are pluralistic as far as other opinions are concerned. The yellow shirts, on the other hand, tend to be totalistic and mostly lack respect for the deviating political views of fellow citizens. Therefore, the challenge of democratization regarding the Democrat-dominated South is not to make people there give up their political views, but for them to come to see deviating beliefs or their own beliefs as being in competition with other beliefs, and respect these other beliefs within the framework of the existing constitutional order. Given the current situation concerning their political attitudes, the people in the small South can hold the great majority of the people in Thailand to ransom, as happened with the election boycotts of the Democrat Party both in 2006 and 2014, and with the PDRC protests. I mean, PDRC protests and Democrats are just twin brothers and twin sisters. And any settlement of the current political impasse at the national level, as important as they of course is, will leave this fundamental problem of how to democratize the southern political culture completely untouched. So in case you have been wondering how the protesters arrived at the superiority complex, you might find part of the answer, but just one part, not all of the answer, in the following brief video clip, and this brings me to my second challenge about the democratization of the notions of nation and monarchy. Thank you. Sorry. All right. Some of you might seen this video already, but it's not for the criticism of the Ferrari boys showing here, but for the first part of about 1 minute.
At first I thought, hey, it's just the king. But we've got so many chances several times to see him walking by. People started to say, long live the king, long live the king, long live, louder and louder and louder, and no one forced him to do that. I couldn't even say that word because I've got tears fully from my eyes. He didn't even speak to me. And you know what happened? I cried even harder. I love the king, I love the monarchy, and I want to protect them. It is not just about the PDRC. It is about uprising the Thai people. They come and fight to protect their king.
So the protests are not merely about the Democratic Party or the PDRC, rather we have people who love the king rising up to protect the king. Obviously one would wonder whether there actually has been any danger for the king, making it necessary to protect him. When I stayed in an apartment near Walailak University, a column of protesters, as you can see here in the picture, passed on their way to the protest site on Jainatana Road. Many of them were dressed in PAD yellow, and the leader on the loudspeaker didn't get tired to over and over say that they had to protest in order to protect the throne. This theme of protecting the monarchy, in characteristic combination with his twin theme, the saving of the nation, is also shown on a typical T-shirt on the next slide, taken at the provincial hall of Nakhon Sitamarat. So you can see the number 9 for the 9th reign, that is King Bhumipon's reign. We love the king, and a little bit smaller, we love the nation. And on the right-hand side, you have the main culprit for the danger the king is supposed to be in, namely Thaksin and his Thaksin regime, including the red shirt protesters. This book is about the movement to topple the monarchy, and you can see how popular it was because it was printed at that time in the 9th edition already. Even 2 weeks ago, when I was sent back by the driver of my university from the airport to the university, at one point he asked me, Ajahn, do you really think Thaksin wanted to become the president of Thailand? And this phrase means, do you really think Thaksin wanted to topple the monarchy? So such concerns have now turned, I skipped the video for the time. Such concerns have now even led to one activist to establish a garbage collection organization which had quite some resonance. And some senators have followed suit by starting a pro-monarchy crusade, as the Banker Post put it. One might dismiss such activities as extremist nonsense by some isolated ultra-royalists who would find no resonance in the broader yellow shirt camp. However, having arisen from fertile soil, and Thailand has had some very bad experience about what might happen when angst about imagined attacks on the monarchy develop hand. Here is a clip which I can't skip that shows what happened in 1976. Sorry. Look at the smiling face of the child in the beginning scene. And then ask yourself, what is he smiling about? So what did the child smile about? He smiled at a supposedly anti-royalist student from Thomas University being killed and then off the tree and then hit repeatedly by this man with a chair. And there were numerous other people who suffered the same fate at that time. So in Thailand, when the king is involved, when emotions about the king and the monarchy are involved, many things can happen that under normal circumstances. And there's a video that shows even more drastic scenes, and when I showed it to some foreign students about Thailand, they were totally shocked and in part had to close their eyes. It was simply too brutal to look at. So in order to understand from a more academic point of view the significance of the issue of the monarchy beyond its use as motivational force in conflict and beyond lurking dangers of violence, we need to recognize that this is part of a broader ideological scheme, and even more important, part of a broader ideological struggle that became apparent in October 73. In 1982, the royalist academic Chayananda Samutpanit put this key conflict this way. The tensions evident since 1973 are the result of a conflict between two alternative sources of legitimacy. One emanating from traditional hierarchical traditions, the other based on popular sovereignty. Since 1973, more than 4 decades has passed. Yet Thailand's politics still struggle with this very same issue of hierarchy versus popular sovereignty. The following slide schematically shows the main elements of the two competing models of the Thai political order. Obviously, these models have nothing significant in common. The setup on the left-hand side has for decades dominated Thailand's ideological landscape, and it has been the key component of state-led indoctrination. The patriotic love and passion of the PDRC protesters have not been based on loyalty to and solidarity with fellow citizens, or on the idea of mutual respect amongst the equal citizens of the Thai polity within the constitutional framework. Rather, the protesters' patriotism was directed towards the good of the nation as a decisive source of political legitimacy based on the power elite's highest value of nation, religion, and monarchy. Thus, the protesters determined the collective good as a key goal of their actions, and therefore felt free to violate the individual's rights, liberties, and interests. Consequently, equality among citizens, constitutional rule, and popular sovereignty were negated by the PDRC and its followers. However, the undemocratic direction of foreign action does not only concern the political leaders of the PDRC and their followers. You might have been wondering about the role of the military, for example, being asked to perform a coup in favor of the PDRC, but even more interesting or intriguing perhaps is the role of the high-level civil servants and ordinary civil servants. They seem to think that, or let me put it this way, they seem to have a sense of a great deal of autonomy, civil servants and military, a great sense of autonomy, separate from the constitutional order and separate from the democratic legitimation of state actions legitimated by the vote in elections. This sense of autonomy vis-à-vis electorally determined political authority is also based on the two models that I have shown in this slide, but it perhaps becomes a little bit clearer in the following slide. Here you can see that the traditional role of the Thai military and the civil service does not follow from any constitutional stipulation whatsoever, but from the key role in providing the foundation for the three pillars of nation, religion, and monarchy, which in turn supports the eternally independent and sovereign Thai nation and Thai kingdom. This self-understanding of the bureaucracy has been around for decades, and the lower level part that you can see here, like democracy, political participation by the people, constitution, the whole representative system, these things are still relatively new to the Thai political system. And they do not fit into the previously dominant model, and they have to compete with it, both in its ideational form and in its practice, as you can see from the PDRC protest, the Democrat election boycott, etc. However, unlike in 1973, the actors and ideas represented on the right-hand side of the previous slide and the lower part of this current slide have grown immensely more popular, not immensely more powerful, popular as well, actually. And this is a key reason for the longevity and the severity of the political turmoil since the late 2005. In other words, those serving as the social carriers of the previously dominant model of the Thai polity have been trying to resist their loss of power to forces in Thai politics that have been at work to democratize the notions of the Thai nation and the Thai monarchy. And the completion of this challenge will remain a key problem for the foreseeable future, that is, beyond trying to clear up the incredibly clunky mess that Thai politics has become since November 2013, which makes it exceedingly difficult to figure out what might happen in the near future. My last slide, you can see goodbye Thailand, left-hand side, right-hand side. So I don't think that this process of solving problems actually, or of rearranging the political order, has anything to do with the fear expressed in this cover page of Sayamlat weekly journal. which is not at all about saying goodbye to Thailand, but it's rather about abandoning an idealized, hierarchical, and exclusive model of the Thai polity and welcome a realistic model of constitutional guaranteed citizens' equality and popular inclusion into politics. That is a democratic constitutional political order. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael. We have now about 20 minutes coffee break. Please be back at 11:10 here to have the last presentation from Dr. Kitty, and then we have open floor for discussion and questions.